Ex-wife who cheated and left our family years ago shows up at my door with another man's child, wanting to reconnect as a family again. She tried to use my son against me. I had been married to Claire for 5 years. It wasn't perfect, but we had built a life together. We had a son, Ryan, who was everything to me. When Claire cheated, it destroyed me. She left without looking back, abandoning both me and our son. For a while, I didn't understand why. She'd promised that we'd be a family, that we'd grow old together. But one day, just like that, she was gone. She moved across the country, leaving behind only broken promises and unanswered questions. The pain of betrayal was deep, but I did what I had to do. I focused on raising Ryan and rebuilding my life. The past few years had been good. Ryan was happy, and I was at peace, or so I thought. I never expected to hear from Claire again. I certainly didn't expect her to show up at my door, years later, with a child in tow. And when I opened that door, my entire world was turned upside down. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I had just finished cleaning up after lunch when the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone, and when I opened the door, there she was, Claire, standing with a little girl by her side. The girl was around 3 years old, her brown hair tied into a messy ponytail, looking up at me with wide eyes. My first thought was confusion. Why was Claire here? And why did she have a child with her? It had been years since I last saw her. She had left me without any explanation, without a backward glance, and now, out of nowhere, she was back with someone else's child. "Jake, I know it's been a long time, but I need to talk to you," Claire said, her voice soft, almost pleading. "We need to talk." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What could she possibly want from me now? I stood there, silent for a moment, trying to process what was happening. The anger I had buried for years was starting to resurface, but I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to let her walk back into my life so easily. "What is this?" I asked, gesturing to the little girl beside her. "Who's this?" Claire hesitated, glancing down at the child before looking back at me. "This is Emma," she said quietly. "She's my daughter." I felt my stomach drop. She had a daughter? With someone else? The thought was overwhelming. What the hell was going on? "Why are you here, Claire?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "You left. You walked out on me and Ryan without a second thought. And now you're back, with someone else's kid?" "I know I made mistakes, Jake," she said, her eyes welling up with tears. "But I wanted to make things right. For all of us. For Ryan. For Emma. I want us to be a family again." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. A family? After everything she had done, she thought she could just waltz back in and pick up where we left off? I felt my anger flare. "You left me. You left Ryan," I said, my voice cold. "You don't get to come back now and act like everything is okay. You made your choice. You made it clear that you didn't want us." Claire's face twisted with guilt, but it wasn't enough. It never was. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I made a huge mistake. I've spent years trying to fix things, but it's never been the same without you. Without Ryan." I shook my head, stepping back from the door. "You don't get to just come back into our lives after all this time. You don't get to play the victim here. You made your bed, Claire. Now you have to lie in it." She looked down at Emma, then back at me. "I'm not asking for much. Just a chance. A chance for Emma to have a father. For Ryan to have his mother." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was all about her guilt, her need for redemption. It had nothing to do with Ryan or Emma. This was about Claire trying to make herself feel better. "I don't know what you think this is," I said, my voice sharp. "But I'm not going to be your fallback plan. You don't get to use Emma to manipulate me into forgiving you. I'm done with this." I slammed the door in her face before she could say another word. The next few days were a blur. I tried to focus on work, on Ryan, on anything to distract myself from what had just happened. But Claire wouldn't let up. She called. She texted. She even emailed me, trying to explain herself, trying to make me understand her side. But I wasn't interested. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. My stomach tightened as I opened it. "Jake, I'm sorry. I know you're angry. I know I messed up, but please, just hear me out." I didn't recognize the number, but the message was unmistakably from Claire. She was trying to manipulate me again, trying to guilt me into listening to her. I opened the message. "Jake, please. I'm not asking for much. I just need your help. Emma doesn't have a father. I'm struggling. Please. Don't turn your back on us again." I stared at the message, feeling the old anger rise up inside me. I wasn't going to fall for it. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into fixing her mistakes. She had left me, and now she was trying to use Emma as some kind of excuse to get back into my life. It wasn't going to work. I typed a quick response. "What's going on, Claire?" She replied almost instantly. "I don't want to cause trouble. I just need you to be there for us. For Emma. She deserves a father." Her words were designed to pull at my heartstrings, but I was done. I wasn't going to be her emotional punching bag anymore. I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't just about Emma or Ryan. This was about Claire's desperation, her need to make herself feel better after abandoning everything. I wasn't going to let her use me again. The next day, I decided to confront her. I wasn't going to let her keep manipulating me with her guilt trips. I needed to put an end to this. I drove to her apartment, knocked on the door, and waited. When she opened it, she looked surprised to see me, but there was no sign of remorse in her eyes. She just looked tired of trying to fix everything she had broken. "Jake, please." "No more lies, Claire," I interrupted, my voice firm. "I know what you're doing. I know you're using Emma to manipulate me. You're not going to get away with it." Her face faltered for a moment, and I could see the flicker of realization in her eyes. But it wasn't enough. I had seen this before, the way she would twist everything to suit her needs. I wasn't falling for it again. "I've been through this before," I said, my voice steady. "You walked away from me, from Ryan, and now you think you can just come back and fix everything. But you can't. You don't get to do that." She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand to stop her. "You don't get to play on my emotions anymore," I said, my tone final. "I've moved on. Ryan and I are fine without you. You made your choice, and now you have to live with it." She stepped back, tears welling in her eyes, but I didn't care anymore. I had given her enough chances. She had used them all up. "Goodbye, Claire," I said, turning to leave. "Don't come back." I could hear her voice crack as she called after me, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I had to be strong, for Ryan. For myself. As I drove home, the weight of the conversation settled heavily on my chest. I had done the right thing. But part of me still wondered, what was she really after? Was this about redemption, or was it about control? I wasn't sure. But one thing was clear, Claire wasn't getting back into our lives. Not now. Not ever. I walked through the door, and Ryan looked up from the couch where he was watching TV. I smiled at him, trying to push the last of the tension from my shoulders. "Everything okay, Dad?" he asked. I nodded, pulling him into a hug. "Yeah, buddy. Everything's fine." And that was enough for me.